Hello, Tom.
Hello, Eric. How you doing?
Doing good, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So we're gonna get into the interview together. I want to introduce you, I guess, in this context as an extraordinary community organizer and community builder for Holochain. You had built a large community for Ethereum in Australia, and you've been instrumental in the building of community to form our intensive that we did last weekend in Sunshine Coast, where we had a number of different projects represented, including, well, several of which that you're involved in different capacities, and at least one that you're a primary stakeholder in. And I want to just ask you a bunch of questions and get a bunch of information from you to share about what your approach is to community building so that more people can build big, rad holochain communities. Got a little list of questions. So if you just share a little bit about your background
Yeah, okay.
and what brought you to Holochain.
Okay, sure. Originally I'm an engineer, and then I just got into being a serial entrepreneur. I got very good at selling products online, and I started to see that what got me into blockchain originally and all this is that people had less expendable income. I could see they had less money on their credit card, so I couldn't charge as much money. So, we all have a sort of a selfish interest at first, but then I started to see the broader problems, and that led me into discovering blockchain at a very early stage. And that's why I saw the need for something like Ethereum. And I was really excited by the technology, and still am really, really excited. But then after working a number of years on Ethereum projects, I started to see the limitations of the technology. If you want to do a transaction on a public network on a blockchain, you kind of have to get all computers to do that verify the network. And that's fine, but if you just want to buy a lollipop, you don't need 1,000 computers to verify that transaction. And there is a workaround around that. I found myself going into patchwork ways, like doing private blockchains and things like that. But it still didn't feel like a unified solution to having some type of global peer-to-peer computing platform. And then Holochain comes along, and basically, in the back of my mind, I remember reading an article how it hadn't been evolved for so many years, like 10 years or something, and then Holochain say, "Oh yeah, we're going to use BitTorrent as a backend." I was like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense." And then you're just basically slapping on the secure peer-to-peer validation, secure execution environment on the top of like all sort of like made a lot more sense to me than the current implementation, these early implementations of secure transactions, if you call it that.
Cool. Great. Why did you choose to get involved in the community? So you were excited about the technology, right? And you saw the possibility with Holochain, that Holochain opened up beyond blockchain technologies. But why didn't you just use it for your applications? Why did you then invest so much energy into sharing about it with other people?
I feel like as society or the world in general, if we keep going down the same sort of fiat incentive mechanisms that we're using at the moment, then eventually we'll kind of chop down the last tree. And politicians and companies and governments have been trying to work out how we can be sustainable on the planet for a number of years, and we still haven't cracked that. And so it made a lot of sense that we needed to change the incentive mechanisms. But yeah, not a lot of people were combining technology and seeing the problems. Or in my eyes, I was in Europe somewhere, and I had a development team over there, and was powering my heart out trying to build a social network. And I come from Brisbane, Australia, and I hadn't really been home for like 4 or 5 years because I was on this endless sort of surfing summer for a while, thanks to some entrepreneuring in the past. And I just realized, oh, this is it. I've got to come home. This is my calling. This is now. I've got to come home, and I've got to start the Brisbane Ethereum meetups because nobody's doing it at home. And I want Brisbane, my hometown in Australia. We've got 3 to 4 million population of 3 to 4 million. I want them to adopt this technology. And I totally underestimated, and I thought like literally the whole world's going to change quite quickly. So I'm very innocent, in this whole movement. I didn't realize how much sort of inertia people have of their day-to-day actions. But I was actually really surprised by how big this idea of smart contracting got. So I just decided, well, no one else is going to do it. That was the moment. Like, if you find there's like, you're on that fringe where no one's going to do something about it, and you know that, or you feel it's really important for maybe a more what you dream of, or what you think is a more equitable or more fair, just society, then that's when you kind of like start tapping into your purpose, I think, and you realize, hang on, this is my moment to be a leader and take that next step. And all these steps are always difficult and scary. But what I really find amazing is that humanity is amazing, and other humans find that you strike a chord. It's like harmonics with frequency, with sound. Everyone just starts resonating, and that's what happens in this whole decentralization technology movement world. And starting a community is about nurturing and facilitating all their conversations all the time. So people come along to a meetup. For some people, it does take a lot to step out of their life and the daily routine life and actually care about something and do as much as possible. It's a little bit cutting out there. But so if somebody stand for something, then good on them. I give them a pat on the back, and also trying to assist and help them move to where they need to get to in life, because we all got our little agenda. And the more you can do that, that's when community starts to form, because people feel like they've actually being listened to for the first time, and that there's actually other people that care about a dream. And that's pretty much where my stand on the whole on all of these types of movements is, if people are getting value and getting what they need from a meeting, a physical meeting or something, then they're going to come back for a second time and a third time, and that's how it happens.
Awesome. Fabulous. Thank you, Tom. I turned my video off to catch us a little more bandwidth because it's getting a teeny bit choppy. All right, so then another question is why, or rather not why, but what do you think is important for the success of Holochain right now?
In this capitalism world, most movements kind of get stopped if they're not financially sustainable at this moment in time. And that's why we've seen things like other cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and Ethereum do well, because they've kind of hacked the current capitalism financial system, because they can self-fund all the way along. And that's why you see media companies coming out talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum and Holochain. And so I think it's really important. Holochain's at that stage now where they've really amazingly done the self-hacked the financial system, and in a good way. Like, obviously people are moving over to these types of store of value because they see a vision in their unique way. So, and that's why I started a podcast to discover Holochain via my view of the world. And so I think that's where we're at with Holochain, that there needs to be more news stories and more people sharing what their unique view of what Holochain makes possible for society, and that's where I think we're at now. And then once those stories are coming out, and in parallel, I think it's also about facilitating current value, whether that be love or fiat or any type of asset, facilitating that to come into the ecosystem. And so that's where I've also started in. I think a really important thing is help developers, help them understand. But I think that's where the movement there's a lot more people in the world than there are developers, and it's people that drive movements, and it's because of their personal stories. So if we can, what I've been doing is I've actually been building a Holochain designers course, or a business course, and trying to connect the gap where there's people who don't understand technology, but they understand their pains, and connect that gap on how Holochain can actually underpin what they're doing. So there's two things really in summary: the media stories of people actually being personally touched and inspired by what's now possible with the new Holochain capacities, and then connecting the gap between people who don't understand technology so well, but it's basically designing their solution on Hollowchain. So then that will drive the funding, which will then pay lots of developers to go and build on the technology and start replicating the Hollowchain patterns across the world.
Love it. Love it. Great. And then what has your experience of contributing to the Holochain community been like? What's been easy? What's been challenging? What have you learned? Yeah, what feels different about it, if anything's unique about it?
Well, we are coming from where humans are great at collaborating, but we have set the bar higher and we can collaborate better than we currently are doing. That's why we've been a pretty dominant species on the planet. And one of my, it was amazing with Ethereum, the level of transparency and collaboration, but at some point, everyone started to go back into a scarcity mindset just a little bit too much. And it's kind of like, I think it's hindered development of projects in the blockchain space because everyone's trying to be the standard and dominate. Whereas what I've seen with Holochain and the development community and the reciprocity at the moment is in just even more so what I've seen online ever in my life. That the amount of backwards and forwards sharing and collaboration is quite amazing. Even a deeper fundamental core resonant thing that's mimicking the patterns of nature that have actually created us in the first place. So the level of collaboration and the dog fooding approach that we're actually using the technology as we build is the two big things that have blown me away in this community.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's really good to hear. And then I guess probably the last big question is, how do, like, in an effort to maintain that, because our community continues to grow and we've been cultivating a different kind of a cultural experience for people that come and join the Holochain ecosystem. And you've been creating that experience for people, that open, collaborative and give and take and reciprocal experience. What advice would you give to people who are coming into the community to help scale that culture, so that we can hold on to that and even grow that as we continue to grow in our numbers?
Well, I think I'm really excited because we're Holochain community are building the tools for it to happen on a global scale. Like this reciprocity. I mean, you're familiar with Dunbar's number. Our brains can handle up to about 150 people backwards and forwards, basically helping each other with trading skills and evolving that way. And, that's one side of it. What I love is that we're actually, the Holochain community, their first priorities are building these also dynamic equity models as well, so that people actually feel like they're getting their whatever vision they're building towards. So I think that's quite really important. And I think the Holo REA project is really essential to that whole vision because it really naturally supports the dynamic equity models quite clear, concise way for everyone to understand. It's what I'm calling like a reality engine. Holo REA stands for resource, event, and agent. So in every type of economic transaction, you've got resources, you've got agents and then it's the actual story of the event. So now all these events, and if you think of life as events, and if you want to build a product or a service, it's just a bunch of events. Or if you want to build some food and turn it into a product, that's just a process of events as well. So I think that the dog fooding approach that we're very close to building these REA accounting systems, which is very, it's been going for 40 years. The way the community is wanting to adopt these types of, event supply chain systems, if you want to think about like that, I think that's quite important for the community to get their head around REA first, and then actually just adopt it as we're doing with the Holo Chat, the other systems that we're building on Holochain.
Perfect. Yeah. And then any last words you'd want to share to someone who's a part of our growing community, or someone who's stepping in and considering being a local meetup organizer or is already an organizer?
I mean, I'm quite shy, believe it or not. But when I get passionate about something, that whole shyness disappears. And so I think my personal experience, my core message is, if you have got a pressing thought in your brain about the direction that you want to take the community, don't be afraid to jump on the Holochain chat and just share it, and you'll be amazed by the response back from people who are literally trying to facilitate your dream as well. So I think the first step is don't be afraid to ask for help. And I have spent years being afraid of asking for help, and here I am saying it's the first thing you should do. So I'm hoping that this message will get you over the edge to just ask for help, and say where you're getting stuck in the brain on what you're trying to do, or even write a paragraph on your vision of the world and put it out into the Holochain chat. And you'll be amazed by the level of resonance or facilitation to help you get to where you're wanting to go. So don't be afraid to just jump into the Holochain chat and actually do that. And you can do that just by going to the Holochain homepage. And I think it's just clicking on chat at the top and joining the chat feature.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
No worries. And
wave goodbye to everyone watching. And then we'll make sure we include a link to your podcast in the thing that gets sent out to everyone.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that.